Welcome to Kansai, arguably the best street in Japan where one can experience firsthand the combination of the depth, the richness, and the epitome of traditional Japanese culture and be within the buzzing metropolis that makes modern 2020 Japan. Whether you're planning to come here on your first mega trip to this region or wanting to relive your memories, this guide is for you. From the deers of Nara, the geishas of Kyoto, and the friendly and upbeat nature of the Osaka people, there are many things to explore in this area that not even a week would do this city justice. So, what are we waiting for? Our journey starts right here in Nara. Let's go! This right here is known as Todaiji Temple, which houses Japan's arguably largest big Buddha, as well as Japan's largest octagonal lantern. It is housed right inside. It was built and completed in the year 752 and is Nara's most revered structure and is one of those non-missable places when you get here, and we'll show you why. When you step foot into the great halls of Todaiji, the silence of those around you envelopes the senses and almost compels you to really focus on the statues themselves and how it represents the depthness of Japanese culture. Nara is famous for its multiple deers and is also the olden capital of Japan before Kyoto officially became the capital of Japan. This is a great way to spend half of your day in one of the most prestigious and most historical places that's ever known in Japanese modern history. I have to admit, this is my first time coming to this area. This is the Todaiji Niigatsudo, which is a structure right next to the Todaiji Temple. For approximately 1300 years, this temple served as a water ritual in which people can come here every March and be able to wash away all the wrongdoings. However, in the 17th century, this place was burnt down, but it was then rebuilt 2 years later. It is open 24 hours a day and is an absolutely great view to see at night. Almost every day throughout the entire year, you can actually do what they call the midnight walk from the Todaiji Temple itself right to the Todaiji Niigatsudo Temple. The entire park will be lit with all these illuminations in which you can take advantage of those great pictures. Welcome to Kasuga Taisha Shrine. Taisha in Japanese meaning the Grand Shrine. The Grand Shrine that was once dedicated to protecting the area of Nara. Just like the Issa shrines, every 20 years, these shrines were purposely rebuilt. However, after the Edo period, which is this date over here, the practice was discontinued. It is one of the first major monuments in which you can actually visit when you're a tourist here in Nara. When you're inside Kasuga Taisha Shrine, you'll notice that there's a massive tree that's got intertwined roots. This is a 200-year-old wisteria tree which grows lavender type of leaves, lavender smelling leaves rather, during the season of spring. This is maybe like my third time going to Nara. And each time that I've come, there's always been like a packard of tourists that are here, often resulting in long waits to even enter major facilities. Inbound flights going to Japan are pretty much restricted. Unfortunately, as I walk past all these major shops, they've got pretty much no one inside. And usually at this time, it's booming. Major mom and dad pop shops around major areas such as Kyoto and Nara that are closing down as a result of a lack of business, and it's something to take into consideration, especially if you come to Japan. Remember to always support your local businesses regardless of where you're from. Now, as my British friends would say, it's Osaka, not Osaka. Osaka is the second most populous city in Japan, and if you're familiar with the sights and sounds of Osaka, right behind this gate is one of Osaka's most famous and most notable places to see. Osaka Castle is arguably the most center point. It is one of the major tourist attractions they can find, and it's very, very difficult to miss. It is the original site of the Hoganji Temple in the year 1583, but however was destroyed by one of the daimyos called Nobunaga Oda. So if you know your history, that name should sound very familiar. But then Hideyoshi Toyotomi rebuilt this castle in the year 1615. However, again, it was destroyed when Tokugawa Ieyasu, the shogun at the time, came into Osaka. So as we're walking towards the castle grounds, one thing you'll notice in particular is it's eerily quiet. Like, there's no one here. At the time of the shooting, the COVID-19 cases in Osaka have increased, unfortunately. Under normal circumstances, this entire place will be peaked with taiko drumming, as well as performances from local kids. It's an awesome place to be. Anyway, let's go to the next adventure. The Osaka Museum of History. Approximately only a 10-minute walk away from Osaka Castle, and looks can be quite deceiving. Looking at it from a glance, it looks like it's a corporate building. Man, like straight up, if you are a history fanatic, Caddy is a history teacher back in Australia, and immediately the first impressions of this museum, lack for a better word, it's freaking awesome. The first impressions about this place is that when the elevator doors open onto the 10th floor, you're immediately immersed with music. And of course, the overall ambience, the darkness of this place kind of encapsulates your focus on the specific periods within Osaka. This is one of the newest exhibits that are available on the Osaka Amazing Pass, and definitely one of those places that you need to have a look. What they call the Keituen Garden, which is the observatory just on top of the Umeda Sky Tower. Now, one of the major things about this place is that I forgot to mention that we're recording this in the middle of Christmas, and this is Osaka's best Christmas spot in terms of getting the Christmas lights, as well as getting some good views over the Umeda area. Now, one thing to also remember about this place is also ranked as the world's 3rd most popular and most beautiful architecturally designed buildings. Now, if you've probably seen my last video 2 years ago with Shota, we've been here during the day, and it's absolutely interesting to see this at night. So if you do plan to come here during Christmas, the Osaka residents would recommend for you to come. But one of the awesome things about going here to the Umeda Sky Tower is the escalators that connect the two buildings together. One thing to take into consideration when you're here is that, especially if you're scared of heights, is to at least mentally prepare yourself, because the elevator and the escalator has a clear view of all the sides of the hemispheres. My friend Caddy, who's just with me as a model, just mentioned that going up the elevators at a rapid speed kind of startled her. So do keep that in mind. But other than that, if you are if you're completely fine with heights, this is an awesome observatory to visit when you're in the Umeda. In the middle of Osaka, there are lots of tabehoda options available for you. The thing is, yakiniku places around Osaka are quite few and rare in between, especially when it comes to all-you-can-eat options. Now, if you are looking for an all-you-can-eat option, the Japanese for that is tabehoda, which is just up here. So look for this particular character. One of the most famous restaurant chains for tabehoda restaurants for yakiniku is a place called Yukaku, where you can actually get some good old pieces of harami, and it's something that you can actually look forward to when you're here in Dontonbori in Osaka. Check it out when you're here. There are still many things to do in Osaka, like Universal Studios Japan, the aquariums, the various river cruises, and the eateries along the way. However, due to COVID-19, most of the places that we had originally planned were either shut, or upon arriving, we deemed it unsafe to do so because of its crowdedness. However, for limited time only, the Osaka Amazing Pass allows for free entry or heavily discounted entry to most of the sites. The places you've seen on this guide were all included in that pass. It also contained discounts to restaurants, so I highly recommend getting one when you arrive. Next, we explore the land of Kyoto. So a stop you should definitely look into when you're here in the Kyoto area is a place called Uji. Uji is famous for growing the world's best matcha. There are 2 regions of Japan that grow the best tea leaves, one of them being Ishizuoka, but the second section being Uji. It was believed that the first green leaf tea was cultivated right here in the grounds of Uji. At the moment, we're in the main Shotengai, which is the main shopping area. You can find many restaurants, and most importantly, tea places where most of the tea masters have existed here in the early years of the Sengoku Jidai. Now, the place that we're going to be showing you is the 2 experiences. The first experience is the grinding of the matcha, and the second experience is, of course, having matcha desserts and matcha lunches just by the Uji River. Let's go. So this right here is the Byodoin Temple. It is one of the major landmarks in Japan, which is equivalent of that, or the same level of that, of Mount Fuji. So it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a culturally protected asset of Japan. The original temple was built in the year 998. However, it was then reconstructed as known as the Phoenix Hall in the year 1058, after Michidaga's son, who was a famous artisan and politician at the time, rebuilt this entire place. And the reason why it's called Phoenix Hall is because of its two phoenixes that exist on top of the rooftops. The only thing you need to be considerate of is that the entrance fee for this particular place is only 600 yen, but it's definitely one of those places you should visit when you're in the Uji area. Alongside the Shotengai is one of the famous restaurants here in Uji. So if you're unsure of exactly where to eat, please go to this place, which is known as the Nakamura Tonkichi, which is a restaurant built in 1854. They serve a specialty of nothing else but just green tea matcha products, which is all infused in their noodles, as well as the desserts. It's famous for not only having the matcha served right into the food itself, but you can also get a great view of the river. One of the things that I would highly recommend getting is the actual desserts itself, because as you can see, it has an infusion of milk and as well as matcha as well. It is a highly recommended place, not only by myself, but it also seems to be quite well rated. Let's go see how it tastes, right? Here's the springiness of the noodles. Itadakimasu. Let's try the springiness of the noodles. Or rather, I've ordered the soba noodles. It's infused with green tea. Dip it in like so, and it's a very, very subtle blend of matcha. A very, very subtle blend of matcha. If you're hungry, you know where to eat now. If you're looking for something that's relatively cheap to eat, but it's not really a fancy restaurant like we went to at Nakamura Todaiji, you can also go here in a place called the Ramen Tanaka, in which you can get some Gyoza and as well as takoyaki filled with nothing but matcha, with the dough itself infused with it. They also have some available ramen noodles with matcha infusion inside. So if you're looking for something a bit more cheap we've been to, this is the place to go to. All right. This is the Mitsuboshi Teien, which is arguably, well, I wouldn't say arguably, it is crowned Japan's #1 Uji place, and we're very, very fortunate to be here. We're very fortunate to be here with the 16th generation owner of this pristine tea house.
Your father?
My father. No.
Oh!
No way. Grandfather, 14, 15, 16 generation.
Wow, before you enter the tea house, you're also granted an exclusive tour in the museum area. We can grab some history of exactly how this tea house came about. Kat was behind the camera, behind the scenes. I was amazed at the amount of history and the amount of traditionalism that came right in the formation of this particular place. I'm not going to reveal too much for you in terms of what you can possibly see in the museum, because this is something that the camera cannot capture properly. But instead, I encourage you all to come and visit here and make a reservation for a tour here when you get to Uji. Anyway, let's start making our matcha for today. This over here is the experience that comes with the tea store, which is the grinding of your own matcha. Caddy is at the moment at the other side because she's grinded the matcha already. She's just waiting patiently. I'm very, very grateful to have the experience done by not only the owner but also the owner's son by the store. I'm very, 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 very grateful for that. So let's just like you said, the experience. So the experience itself. So the experience itself is actually very, very good. So the process of making the matcha involves you having to turn this turnstile at least one turn, 1 second. So 1 turn, 1 second. In order to grind the matcha. And you can kind of see the matcha falling right into the sides, like so. And it's interesting to see the leaves, like the fresh leaves coming from the top, and the matcha leaves coming to the side.
Whilst we
had a chat with Mr. Kanbayashi, we were able to explore the shop and purchase matcha. A great experience, and I'm honored to have it. Many thanks to Arigato Food Tours Japan for helping organize this.
3, 2, 1 more. Man, It's kind of chilly. Ken and I were commenting that it was actually snowing the night before. If you've seen this bridge on my left-hand side, you'll know exactly where we are. This is Arashiyama. So if you're looking for some major coffee, this is the place to be, which is called Percentage Arabica, just right next to the Togetsukyo Bridge. So whether you come here by bus or the JR train line, or if you're lucky enough, if you came here by the Randen line, do take the time to visit the Kimono Forest, which is located right next to the Randen Arashiyama station. During the spring months, they usually have cherry blossoms and bonsai trees exhibitions right here through the walk. So if you happen to come here, whether it be spring, winter, summer or fall, do take the time to come here because this will give you a glimpse of the 4 seasons in Japan. It's only a short walk distance to the bamboo forest, which we're heading to right now. It's snowing just before I even had the chance to be able to do this. But this is the Sagano, or the Arashiyama bamboo forest. It is one of the most famous landmarks of Arashiyama and is one of probably 2 reasons why people visit this place. The reason why bamboo is quite famous or quite revered in Japanese folklore is because bamboos are said to be able to have the properties to protect evil influences from entering this particular sacred space. This is what they call the Chukuri no Komichi, which is the path of the bamboo. But right in front, you're able to take advantage of the street view that's right here. This is, in terms of the most Instagrammable places in the Arashiyama area, bear in mind, one of the rules of being here is that you're not allowed to touch the bamboos nor inscribe on them. I know it seems like a pretty self-explanatory rule, common sense rule. However, in the past few years, it's been reported that many people have written their names on the bamboo, which is a big no-no. The next stop where we're heading off to is the Ryoanji Temple. Originally, this was an aristocrat's country villa, which was converted into a Zen temple in the year 1450. In the year 1488, the Hojo, which is the abbot's quarters, was then restored, and the repairs were made to the other temple buildings around this particular ground. Unfortunately, in the events of 1797, this place was destroyed by a fire, but then was originally restored back to its conditions that we see right now. Now, one thing to note about the Ryoanji Temple is that it's got an infamous rock garden. And Kat and I have been sitting here for a good maybe 5 minutes. Let's listen to the guide, just those right behind us, and himself and myself and Kat, where you can only count 13 stones. So there's obviously the 14th stone here that we're yet to find. But that's the whole grandeur about this particular rock garden, is that regardless of the positioning that where you are, you'll only be able to count 13 stones, which is the splendor of optical illusions for sure. Welcome to the area called the Kiyomizu-dera, which is known as the Pure Water Fountain Temple, which was found in the year 780. It's right by the sides of the Otowa waterfalls, and in 1994 is then a culturally registered asset in the World UNESCO Heritage Records. One of the main things to also look out for in this particular area is a place called the Ninen and the Sanen Zaka, where on the footskirts of Kiyomizu-dera there is a large shopping area in which you can take advantage of just not the local goods, but the goods that make Kyoto famous for what it is. One of the greatest things about walking through Ninenzaka, especially at this time of the evening, is to be able to have a look at the pagoda right there in the scopes. Make sure you walk down from Sanenzaka and into Ninenzaka where the old tea houses are. Besides looking at this pagoda, around the actual vicinity is also the Starbucks, which is quite famed around the world because it's one of the old traditional Starbucks with the interiors being decked out with traditional Japanese designs. No Kyoto trip is ever complete without taking the time to visit the iconic Fushimi Inari Shrine. For those who are familiar with the title of Members of a Geisha, this scene was reminiscent to that movie. It is a famous shrine just nestled in the place called Inari, which is only a 10-minute train ride from Kyoto station itself. This shrine is so old that it predates the move to Kyoto, where Nara was once the capital of Japan in the year 794. It is said to have around 10,000 shrines aligned from the bottom of the mountain right to the top of Mount Fushimi. Now, one thing to also note is that the main torii gate that resides right in front of the entrance was donated by no other than Hideyoshi Toyotomi, that resided during the unification of Japan in the Sengoku Jidai period. If you've ever found yourself in Kyoto, this is the place to definitely not miss out in your itinerary, and is a top spot in 2018 as Instagram's most Instagrammable place in Japan. Look how beautiful this golden pavilion is. The golden pavilion in Kyoto is known as the Kinkakuji, which is one of the major shops in the northern part of Kyoto itself. It was once owned by a rich statesman back in the Muromachi period. However, the third shogun at the time, for the Ashikaga shogunate, actually adored this temple so much that he actually bought it from the statesman. As a result of many years of ownership, they've decided to use this place as a means of hosting most of the notable guests, including the emperor himself. The reason why it's called the Kinkakuji is because of the existence of the golden foils which line the actual walls on the temple grounds itself. This is going to be one of the few moments where you can kind of see this place being relatively less crowded, because usually under normal circumstances this place will be entirely packed right to the very brim. Enjoy the views with us. What we're bearing witness to right now is something called the Ninomara Goten Palace, the actual place where the famous samurai warlord Tokugawa Ieyasu, which became obviously the shogun of Japan, rested every night. What is especially quite beautiful about being inside here is something called the nightingale floors. And for those who don't know what nightingale is, it's a type of bird. So what a nightingale floor is that it's a floor where it has the wooden statue plus the cavity plus the floor itself. And what that does, like every time that someone was to make a step onto those floors, it will create a creaking sound that almost sounds reminiscent to that of a nightingale bird. Back then, obviously, security measures for this place was quite high. And in order to make sure that to upkeep this level of security, to protect obviously one of the largest figures in the land at the time, was to have those nightingale floors as a method of deterrence as well as detection for any type of ninjas or unwanted guests to come through the doors. It's amazing to be able to walk through a place like this and to relish in the fact of vast significance and history. Each station has its own specific ramen street, and Kyoto Station is not an exception. The Kyoto Ramen Street is located on the 10th floor of the Satin building, and literally just off the exit from the Shinkansen platforms. The reason why I prefer going to these sort of ramen streets is because each streets, including Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, and Kyoto ramen streets, is that they have specific ramen from each specific region. And the one that we're having at the moment is a restaurant that specializes in specific ramen from Toyama region itself. And that pretty much ends our Kyoto trip. I mean, my God, time has gone very, very fast. If you have any questions about this guide, or if we missed out on anything that we haven't picked up before, please do comment right below, because all of our reporters are here to help you with your guides. My name is Morgan. Thank you very much for watching this episode of The Global Citizenship. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.